Real stories, real people.
My name is Andres Ortega. I had already spent several years in the military when I was assigned to a mission that, on paper, didn't seem unusual at all, locating a man who had managed to avoid capture for months. He wasn't a major leader, just a former farm worker who had become involved with criminal groups. Still, something didn't add up. Every time we got close, he didn't run, he didn't hide. He simply wasn't there anymore. Reports piled up. Witnesses swore they'd seen him minutes earlier. Houses that looked occupied suddenly stood empty. In 2020, we were assigned a specific operation to find him. We didn't know the real problem wasn't tracking him. It was being able to see him at all. For months, we searched rural zones, hills, and farmland. We followed solid clues, fresh footprints, extinguished campfires, food still warm. But every time we reached the exact spot, there was nothing. No people, no movement. It felt like the place erased itself right in front of us. Once, a helicopter flew over an area where we had clearly seen several houses and a large crop field only minutes earlier. When we returned with ground units, everything was gone, just dry land. All of us saw it. This wasn't a mistake by one person. That's when the rumors started. That the man was protected. That something was hiding him. I didn't believe it. My teammates told me not to look at her again. One of them said a cousin once tried to help her by bringing fresh water. The next morning, his tongue was swollen and he couldn't speak for days. No one knew exactly what she was. They only knew it was better to leave her alone. After that, strange things began happening at the outpost. One canteen was found filled with salt water. Another man woke up wearing his uniform perfectly, but inside out. For me, it was worse. One night, I found something under my cot. A wet fishing net tangled with long, black hair. It didn't belong to us. Before the next operation, someone suggested we try it. We had nothing to lose. That night, beside our vehicles, we stood in silence. Each man prayed in his own way. It wasn't ceremonial. It was awkward, honest. We asked for clarity, to see what had been hidden from us. Then we headed toward the same area that had vanished again and again. And that night, something changed. In the distance, we saw lights, houses, exactly where there had been nothing before. The field was there too. Green, real, impossible to ignore. For the first time, the place didn't disappear. We moved closer without turning on our headlights. Everything was silent. Then I felt a shift in the air. In the middle of the field, a massive shadow rose. It had no clear shape, but it took up too much space, taller than any man, wider than a vehicle. The wind picked up suddenly, and it wasn't just weather. It was a message. Leave. I didn't hear it with my ears. I felt it in my chest. No one spoke. No one fired. Then the shadow slowly moved aside, as if allowing us through. We advanced. The houses were no longer empty. Gunfire broke out. Shouting, chaos. We responded the way we were trained. Within minutes, it was over. Among the detainees was a thin man, a bandana covering one eye. It was him, the man we couldn't find. As we cuffed him, he didn't resist. He just smiled. Not a smile of victory, a smile of farewell. Like he knew something had finally let him go. Days later, he was held by a specialized unit. I was present for part of the interrogation. He spoke calmly, described murders like old memories. At one point, I asked why capturing him had been so difficult. He looked at me with his one eye and said, "Because I made a deal. He gave things in return. Family, blood, voices. In exchange, something covered him, hid him even when we were standing right in front of him." Then he lowered his gaze and added, "But it's gone now." After his arrest, we found mass graves. Too many. Bodies that had been used as fertilizer for the crops. The land itself was built on death. He was convicted and extradited. In prison, he deteriorated fast, screaming, seeing things. Months later, he took his own life. A guard said they found him crying, claiming the shadow had returned. But this time, not to protect him. This time, it came to collect. I was never the same after that. Not because of the violence. I had seen that before. But because I realized some forces step in when humans cross certain lines. Since then, whenever a mission becomes impossible without explanation, I think of that shadow, not as a legend, as a warning. Because not everything that helps does so for free, and not every form of protection is a blessing. People think evil works only through weapons and fear. I learned that sometimes it works through agreements. Some people don't hide. They are hidden until something decides to let go. That man was never invisible. He was covered, and when the shadow stepped aside, the world could finally see him. But by then, far too many had already paid the price. My name is Efrain Salgado. For several years, I was assigned to coastal security operations, patrolling docks, small fishing villages, and remote shorelines where the jungle meets the sea. In 2020, my unit was sent to an isolated coastal outpost near a tiny village barely marked on maps. Most people there lived off fishing, quiet, cut off from everything. There were only 5 of us, rotating shifts, sleeping inside a converted storage building near the mangroves. On my first night, I noticed something unusual. A woman stood alone at the pier, staring at the ocean. She didn't move. She didn't speak, and none of the locals went near her. I asked who she was. A fisherman told me they called her the one who never entered the water. That was all he said. He explained she lived alone in an old hut near the mangroves, and no one visited her, not because she was rude, but because she scared people. What didn't make sense was that she was always near the ocean, yet never got wet. Not her feet. Not her hands. One night, I saw her standing barefoot in the mud by the mangroves. Water surrounded her ankles, yet her skin was completely dry. When I shined my flashlight, she slowly raised her hand, signaling me not to come closer. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the cold. My teammates told me not to look at her again. One of them said a cousin once tried to help her by bringing fresh water. The next morning, his tongue was swollen, and he couldn't speak for days. No one knew exactly what she was. They only knew it was better to leave her alone. After that, strange things began happening at the outpost. One canteen was found filled with salt water. Another man woke up wearing his uniform perfectly, but inside out. For me, it was worse. One night, I found something under my cot. A wet fishing net tangled with long, black hair. It didn't belong to us. I threw the net far into the brush. The next morning, it was back under my bed. The third time it appeared, there was a small jar inside. Cloudy water filled it, and something floated within. It was a long, black fingernail, definitely not human. The smell was rotten. That night, I dreamed she was sitting at the foot of my cot. Her feet were dry, but her dress was soaked from the waist down. I woke up drenched in sweat. The room smelled like the ocean. No one was there, but I felt someone had just left. Days later, I went with another officer to check abandoned boats near the mangroves. While we worked, he suddenly froze. His flashlight fell to the ground. He shoved me without a word, and we ran. Later, he told me he saw her among the trees, not walking, floating. He said she never touched the ground, moving slowly, silently. Her face was dry, but her eyes reflected the light like an animal's in the dark. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m, I heard something dragging itself outside the building. I stepped outside and moved into the mangroves. There, I found candles pushed into the mud, carefully arranged, wax stripped into the soil. Farther in, rags hung from the branches. They weren't clothes. They were skins. I hid behind a fallen palm tree. That's when I saw her. She was crouched low, hair covering her face. In front of her lay something large, covered in stained sacks. Animal remains hung nearby, and something bigger, something human-shaped. She murmured words that didn't sound right. She scooped a thick black substance from a pot and smeared it in circles on the ground and over the bodies. Then she rubbed it across her face and dragged a stone knife along her arms. She didn't cut herself. She didn't bleed. Each time she moved, the hanging things swayed on their own. I stayed frozen, barely breathing. At one point, she lifted her head. I don't know if she saw me. Everything went silent. Then she stood and walked straight ahead, leaving everything behind. I stayed hidden until sunrise. The next day, my head was splitting. I dreamed someone whispered into my ear. In the room, I saw wet footprints circling my cot. I went to wash my face. When I looked in the mirror, I saw something impossible. My reflection was turned away from me. That's when I understood if I didn't leave that day, I never would. I claimed a medical excuse and left without waiting for orders. I never told anyone what I saw. No one would have believed me. Sometime later, I heard a new officer disappeared in that same area. They said the tide had taken him. The boat was found just 2 meters from shore. His boots were neatly placed side by side, pointing toward the ocean. I was transferred to another city, but some nights, I still wake up smelling salt. And when I open my eyes, I feel someone standing in the room, watching me. I know exactly who it is. People say the sea takes its own. I learned that sometimes someone claims them first. That woman never entered the water. Never. She didn't need to. The ocean was already part of her. And even though I'm far from the coast, I know it doesn't matter where I am. Some things don't follow you. They wait. And when the silence smells like salt, she's close. My name is Luis. I served as a corporal in a unit that operated deep in the mountains, far from cities and paved roads. Long patrols, rough terrain, exhaustion that was normal for us. None of that scared me. This happened in October of 2017. We received intelligence about an armed group hiding inside caves in the area. No details, just an order to move in and clear the zone. There were 16 of us. By the 4th day, radio signal was gone. The fatigue had settled into our bodies, but we kept moving. In the military, when you're told to continue, you do, even when something inside you starts warning that you shouldn't. Near nightfall, one of the men found an opening between the rocks. A thick smell poured out, burnt, rotten, heavy. Not humidity, not animal. There were signs of fire inside. We secured the perimeter, but there was no second entrance. So we went in the only way we could. 2 first, then the rest. The moment I stepped inside, I felt the air change, heavier, like the cave didn't want us breathing there. Black candles were melted onto the walls. The floor was covered with remains I don't even want to describe. That's when I realized we hadn't found criminals. We had found something else. At the center of the cave stood a human-shaped figure made of bones tied together with dried mud. It looked like a body, but it wasn't. It felt like a mockery of one. An upside-down cross was fixed to its chest. Its back was carved with names, cut deep with something sharp. When I aimed my light closer, my chest tightened. I recognized some of the last names. They were ours. Not just one, several. The fear didn't hit all at once. It crept in slowly, quietly. The kind of fear that settles in your head and doesn't let you think straight. That's when I knew someone had been waiting for us, long before we arrived. One of the officers fainted as soon as he saw the figure. The lieutenant moved toward an improvised altar at the back and found a notebook wrapped in something that looked like human skin. I don't remember everything written inside. Only one word, repeated over and over. Gods. The lieutenant ordered us to burn everything. The figure, the candles, the remains. Thick smoke filled the cave and clung to our clothes, our skin, our hair. No matter how far we walked afterward, the smell stayed with us. We camped nearby that night. No one slept. Not because we feared the cave, but because we felt something had left it with us. Around midnight, we heard Robles screaming for help. He wasn't where he was supposed to be. We found him a short distance away, on his knees, digging into the dirt with his bare hands. His fingernails were torn off, the skin on his fingers shredded. He didn't speak. He just kept digging, like he was searching for something he couldn't see, but something had already placed in his mind. We dragged him back to camp. He was shaking uncontrollably. By morning, he wasn't breathing. No fatal wounds. No explanation. He was just dead, staring up at the sky. The lieutenant ordered an immediate withdrawal. We marched all day in silence. When we reached the extraction point, we counted heads. We were short. 3 men were missing. 2 had been the first to enter the cave. The third was Robles. No one volunteered to go back. The lieutenant said burning that place was like challenging something ancient, that anyone who wanted to retrieve the bodies could do it alone. No one moved. Officially, we reported them as lost in the mountains. That was the story, but none of us believed it. At night, I hear scratching at my front door. Slow, deliberate, like something testing the wood. I never open it. I never get close. Sometimes in the morning, I find fresh claw marks. Real ones. A neighbor once asked if I'd been digging holes in my yard. I went outside to check. The soil beneath my bedroom window had been disturbed, like someone tried to come up from below. No footprints. Just torn earth and scratches. That's when I understood it never stayed in the cave. One night, I gathered the courage to go outside with a flashlight. I saw something move near the fence. I couldn't focus on it, but the smell of wet earth was so strong it made me sick. Since then, I sleep with the lights on. It doesn't stop anything, but it buys me a few seconds. Every October, the smell returns. The marks on the door get deeper. It doesn't matter where I live. Some things don't follow you. They already know where you are. My grandmother used to say, you don't need to touch certain things to be marked. Just seeing them is enough. I saw something I wasn't meant to see, and since then, I know I'm never truly alone. I'm not telling this story to scare anyone. I'm telling it because it's still happening, because there are places where evil doesn't sleep. It waits, and once it learns your name, it doesn't matter how far you run, how much you pray, or where you hide. It always knows how to find you. My name isn't important. After 9 years on active duty, you learn that some missions aren't meant to be written down. They exist only in memory. This happened during a deployment in the northern desert, a stretch of land between small towns where the landscape never changes, just heat, rock, and silence. We were sent there in 15-day rotations to patrol forgotten routes, places no one cared about anymore. There were 6 of us, split between 2 vehicles, light packs, water, GPS, rifles. On paper, it was supposed to be routine. Before we left, a local guide warned us about one specific place. He refused to go near it. He just said people called it the well, and the fear in his voice told me this mission wouldn't end like the others. When we asked why no one went near it, the guide lowered his voice. He said strange sounds came from that direction at night, laughter, but twisted, not human, not animal either. We checked the maps. Nothing marked. No coordinates, no trails. To the locals, the place didn't exist, not because they didn't know where it was, but because pretending it wasn't there felt safer. The lieutenant decided to add it to our route. He said that was exactly why we needed to check it. I didn't agree, but in the military, you don't argue. As we moved closer, the desert grew unnaturally quiet, not peaceful, held back, like something was waiting for us to arrive. The first day passed without incident. The second day, we started noticing things. Symbols carved into rocks along the route, not graffiti, not cartel markings. The shapes were wrong, uneven spirals, crooked lines, figures that looked like worms or snakes. They were fresh, dark, and thick. One of the guys touched one with his bayonet. The blade came back, smeared, greasy, like it had passed through warm fat. The lieutenant ordered us not to touch anything else. No one said it out loud, but we all felt it. Those symbols weren't warnings. They were invitations. And whatever they were meant for, we were already too close. We reached it just after noon. It wasn't a man-made well. It was a natural depression in the earth, wide and dry, like a crater, about 20 meters across. In the center, a deep hole dropped into darkness we couldn't see through. Around the edge were small stones placed carefully, animal skulls, melted candle wax. Some of it still soft, as if it had been used recently. There was no water, but the air felt heavier there, colder. The lieutenant decided we'd set camp nearby. He wanted to observe the site after dark. I felt it in my gut immediately. Some decisions announce their consequences the moment they're made, and this was one of them. That night, the desert didn't move. No wind, no insects, nothing. We took turns on watch. I was on the first shift when we heard it to a low, steady hum rising from the center of the well. Not loud, not sharp, just constant. We approached with flashlights. We saw nothing, but the sound stayed, vibrating in our chests. One of the soldiers said he saw movement deep below. We called the lieutenant over. When he looked down, his face changed immediately. He ordered us to step back. That's when we saw it. Down there, slowly turning in circles, was a hunched figure shaped like a woman. Not climbing, not falling, just rotating, like it had all the time in the world. The lieutenant gave a clear order to pull back. Everyone obeyed except one man. He dropped his pack and rifle and walked toward the edge, arms open, like he recognized what he was seeing. We shouted. He didn't respond. I tackled him before he reached the hole, but when I saw his face, it wasn't him anymore. His eyes were rolled white, his mouth hung open, empty. Behind us, the figure stayed right where it was, watching. No one slept after that. Before sunrise, the soldier began rocking back and forth, murmuring things we couldn't understand. Then he vomited clumps of long black hair that clearly weren't his. A short time later, he died. No wounds, no explanation. Something had already decided his fate. We packed up immediately and tried to leave. That's when everything failed. GPS screens showed error messages. Compasses spun without settling. Watches stopped keeping time. As we moved on foot, one of the guys said someone was following us. We turned around, nothing there, but in the sand behind us were footprints. Small, bare. The toes were too long, the ends marked by deep claw-like grooves. We picked up speed. Between the rocks, we saw a tall, hunched silhouette. The lieutenant raised his rifle but didn't fire. He said he felt sick, then doubled over, vomiting blood. We had to carry him. In the confusion, another soldier vanished. No sound, no struggle, just gone. By afternoon, we were barely moving. Fear and exhaustion had taken over. Then we saw a military vehicle in the distance. At first, we thought it was a mirage. It wasn't. They were looking for us. They pulled us out fast, no questions. The lieutenant died during transport. I was placed on medical leave for psychological trauma. Later, I learned that within 36 hours, 7 more soldiers connected to that same assignment died. No firefights, no enemies, just sudden deaths. All of us had been exposed to the same place. All of us had seen the same thing, but only a few of us came back. Doctors said I was physically fine, but since then, every new moon, a rash appears on my neck in the same exact spot. It doesn't hurt. It burns. Sometimes I dream about the well, not the figure, but the sound. That low hum that settles into your bones. I never returned to that area. I never reported what really happened. There are no boxes on official forms for things like this. And admitting it would mean accepting that some places don't answer to rank, weapons, or reason. People think the desert is empty, just dirt and silence. They're wrong. Some places look hollow, but they're full of something old, patient, and aware, waiting for someone to look too long into the dark. The well is still out there. No map shows it. No coordinates lead to it. But it exists. And if you ever hear laughter where no one should be, don't get closer. Because some things don't want to be found. They want you to stay.